hairspray in my hair. How you feeling? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to With the Heathers.
WTH.
Episode number 2 of our official podcast. Thank you to everybody that commented on the last one. Thank you for everybody that texted us. I got a couple of messages where people are like, I love the pod.
I didn't.
So I feel like people like us together. I mean, we are married, but I feel like you and I together, you know.
Can I help you?
Yeah. So yeah, welcome to our podcast. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. Let us know what's up. Today, we are talking about marriage because just recently we celebrated 8 years.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, how do you feel?
I feel good. I feel happy.
Happy?
Yes. Because
That's good. I got to be honest. 8 years seemed crazy when we were like on year 1.
yes.
So we just were talking and we knew we wanted to start talking a little bit about like our marriage and actually start hooking you guys up with some like tips or things that we've tried to practice in our own relationship. Now we are pastors and we do have maybe a different life rhythm than the average couple, but I feel like the stuff that we've really implemented, anybody can learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of our foundational stuff in marriage, it's all scripture based, but it also is very common sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, complain about marriage like, oh, you know, my marriage isn't doing good, or I'm not like you guys, but then there's never actually practical things to put into place.
Yeah.
So I've always appreciated about us that we always take the time to like, you know, go over our year, or we talk about like our budget, we talk about like what the week's going to look like.
Yeah.
And most of the issues I think people have, and we have at times, is when you just don't know how to talk to each other.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree 100%.
yeah, but right now we got the baby down. How's the morning been? Today's technically our day off.
Yep, it's our day off, but we were sick all last week, so I don't like that.
You just like it up here like this?
I just feel like how do I
Well,
rest?
okay, we were sick all week. You're right.
Yeah, we were sick all week, so yeah, it was just like really quiet between Christmas and New Year's. We were sick pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, it was kind of bad. I wanted to say people started getting sick like the week after Christmas around our community. And then, yeah, Atlas was sick. And y'all, all the parents that have kids, I'll tell you what, you know what it's like when your kid is sick. It's just a different level.
Mm.
It's just a different level of like commitment, focus. There's
Commitment.
Listen, when your kid is sick, you have to like commit on a different sense because, you know, sometimes she's over there chilling and I'm committed to being here and she's over there and she'll come and need something. But when she's sick, it's like she only wants to be held. It's like she's 6 months old again. It's
Yeah.
like she just wants to be held. Needs someone around her constant.
Yeah, it is. It was definitely a draining week for sure. It was weird because we just weren't expecting it. I didn't go to church on Sunday, stayed home with her because she's just been so off.
Oh my gosh, you did miss church.
Yeah, so it was weird just like starting the year and not being at the first service. Like, I don't know, for myself, man.
Yeah,
like not starting in church was very weird to me. Because when was the last time
that you took a Sunday off?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it was when we were on vacation, but yeah, it's not common just to be like, you stay.
Yeah, to be home and watching it from home. I'm like, what am I doing here?
To our team though, because everyone held it down.
Oh yeah,
in terms of like the worship element,
for sure.
Yeah, so Randy was, you know, sick. I was feeling off. The baby was sick, but today everyone's doing a lot better.
Yeah, we are doing a lot better.
Yeah, we are doing a lot better, and so that's why we're filming today. And yeah, it was a good morning so far. I mean, I think we had a guy come over and look at our basement because we're getting some stuff in the basement like looked at. And the house we're living in right now is the couple that was here before probably lived here how long?
50 years.
50 years lived in this house, and the guy that lived here, I mean, he's got so many things like rigged downstairs.
Yeah, like a bunch of
it's like
fixings.
Water pipe that's hanging with like it looks like zip ties.
Yeah,
hanging up to the ceiling.
He just made it work.
Yeah, he just made it work, and you know, God bless him because that's not me. But like, the guy that came and looked at it today, I was expecting him to say like, "Oh, this is just terrible. You got to fix this." He looked at it and goes, "This is fine."
Yeah, he's like, they took care of the house really well.
Yes.
I mean, you could tell it wasn't always like a handyman coming in to fix it. He was the handyman of the house, but he took care of the house for sure.
Who was the handyman at your house? Did your dad always do stuff growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I want to say my dad always called someone. I mean, he knew how to do stuff. Like I remember he had a tool shed and he had the garage where I would play basketball. It was a hoop on it.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, he was able to fix stuff. But I think a lot of times it was like we're calling someone to fix
No,
that.
no, he fixed like 90% of stuff. The only thing that they would ever call for is like plumbing
Yeah.
and electric. My dad did everything else.
Yeah. How about in our marriage? How's the handyman skills been, you think, by me?
I think you have gone in a slow incline over the past 8 years. You have
Oh,
progressed,
man.
but in a manner in which was not.
Listen, I'm
Speedy.
not the one. I just feel like sometimes you need to own the fact when you're not that way. Like,
Yeah,
just-
as long as you are always getting someone to do it
Yes.
in a timely manner,
well,
which you
that's
do.
the thing though, because I think a lot of husbands are like, I don't do that stuff, and then they just leave it be.
That's fine. It's still your responsibility to figure it out.
No, brother, I am calling someone right away. Hey, can you come look at my toilet? Can you come?
Yeah,
look at
you
this? Can
do.
come look
You
at-"
do.
Oh, yeah.
You call people right away. Yeah, for sure. That's the
I
thing.
I remember one time we were living in our place in LA, and the pipe, like the sink pipe. You remember this? It was like the elbow part. Me explaining this sink will show you how less I
like
do handyman
this
work.
shape.
Okay, how little I do handiwork. Yeah, it's the part under the sink that goes like that.
It goes like this.
Yeah, and it was clogged, I think, because it was potato peels. Was the
You made
culprit.
potatoes in the morning. I think
Right.
this was when I was working full time.
Yep.
And sorry, it was my iced coffee shake throwing the
No,
audio off. You died.
No, I'm not. No.
Oh,
Go
what?
ahead. Nothing.
Too close, too far.
No.
No, what?
Finish the story.
I was working.
You were working
full
and
time. You
yeah.
just started working from home.
Yeah, I was working remotely.
And you were like ready to go on this like
Yeah.
make breakfast, lunch, and dinner grind every day.
Yep. And I must have potato peeled.
The potatoes.
Yeah, peeled the potatoes and then put them down the garbage disposal. And then it started getting clogged. So I'm like, I can fix this. So I go and get like the biggest wrench I can find. Literally walk to the Ace Hardware, I think, in Hollywood, and just grab the biggest one I could find and then tried to unscrew it myself. Ended up unscrewing it, but like cut my hands all the way down.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. And then I got it unclogged, but spilled water everywhere, and then got it put back. And then
No,
I got it put back, and then like a week went by, and it was still clogging.
yeah.
And I didn't put together right, so we actually called the maintenance.
And then they were like, "What happened?"
Yeah, the maintenance man like laughed, and he actually unclogged more potato peels, and he just left them there.
I remember that.
Yes. So like the maintenance man at our apartment complex, we were living in Park La Brea in
West Hollywood.
in West Hollywood. And so the maintenance department, we just checked that box on our form that's like, let yourselves in if we're not home. So the guy came in and unclogged it. This is a week after my unsuccessful unclogging.
Correct.
The guy comes in, unclogs it. It was like a brand new pipe, brand new screw. I was like, this is great. But he left all the potato peels just sitting
On the counter.
in a big pile.
And the trash was out. The trash bin
can
was right there. It was a
right by
huge
the
bin.
window. It's literally right by the window. But it was a moment to
He was
shame
trying to
me.
prove us. Yeah.
Prove us.
to
I think it was shaming.
Oh, yeah. That
It's disheartening.
was crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're talking about marriage, and I thought it would be cool for us to talk about 8 things we've learned over the 8 years we've been married.
Okay.
But before that, anybody that's new, maybe to the channel or doesn't know us, like tell us, let's start with just how we met and, where we were at, because that's always a fun story.
Okay. From my perspective.
Well, I was going to say, like, we met
How
in
far
church.
back are
Well,
we
we
going
met in
back?
church, obviously. That's the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Saw you. And
Yeah.
I started coming, you were on the worship team.
And I didn't know you when you were seeing me.
No, because I went to that church maybe 3 times before I actually went and like was there.
Yeah.
And so for over the course of a year, I went like 3 times and saw Randy on stage, and I always thought she was pretty, but I always thought she was older. I
Yeah.
remember thinking that you were like 20. How old did I say you were?
23, 24. And
And
you
how
were
old
like
were you?
21. And you were 21. And I
You
was
were
17.
Yeah, she's 17. I was like, oh, she was 22, 23. So yeah, 3 times saw her. We never connected.
Mm.
And then I started coming back to church when I got cancer.
Regularly.
Yeah, regularly.
I remember,
And-
honestly, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but I remember seeing you multiple times walking out of the sanctuary doors
Yeah.
into the men's restroom, like during services. Like I would see you go into the restroom often.
Yeah.
And later you told me that you would leave services to throw up because you were in
because
treatment.
I was going through chemo. Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of people know my story, but yeah, it was like, that was where a lot of people knew me from, was like, oh, he's sick.
Because I would come out of the
Yeah.
back, the back of the church, and I would walk inside to the atrium, and I would see this guy, this
Yeah.
bald guy, was running into the restroom.
Yeah, but you still like that bald look. Huh?
I did, apparently.
Okay, good news. So yeah, we met in church, and I got brought on stage like the last big part of my cancer treatment
Treatment.
to get prayed for. And that was the first time we talked. And like she came up to me after that moment and said, "Hey, I'm Randy." And I think you said, "I've been praying for you." Like, because everyone had kind of been talking about like,
Yeah.
okay. And yeah, I go to get this surgery done in LA. After the procedure, I wake up and my dad's like, "Some girl from church is here." And
Wait, hold on.
well, this is my perspective. You
Okay,
can say
okay,
next.
okay.
This is my perspective. You could take your side next.
Okay.
My dad wakes me up and he's like, "Some girl from church is here to pray for you." And Randy comes in and
What did you think when he said that?
oh my
Did you know who it
gosh.
was?
No, I had no idea. No, I did not know it was Randy at all. It was just he just said some girl and her sister. And in my head, I'm like trying to recall, like, I don't
We also
know.
had just come out of like a crazy
Yeah, I
surgery.
was also like, under for 12 hours, I think the procedure was. And yeah.
So what'd you think when we walked in?
Oh, I just was like, this is amazing. I never thought like that quickly somebody I met would show up like that. I never thought that. I always thought like, that's something that is reserved for like close friends, close families to do. And, I get out of this life-changing procedure that saved my life essentially. And my dad is there. And I remember we had just watched the second to last episode of Breaking Bad. And so I had to watch the season finale in the hospital, still recovering. But we watched it. It was epic. And I remember just me and my dad, and I was just like, yeah, we're going to watch TV. It's cool. And then when you came in, it just was like, I can't believe someone I just met cares about me this much. And little did I know.
So cute.
Yeah. So that was my side of how we met.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I saw you a few times at church randomly. And then I remember, like you said, I met you the night of before your big surgery. But I remember you had been at the 2 morning services and they prayed for you. Or no, you had been at the...
I think it was a Wednesday night.
No, it was a Sunday. You were at second service on Sunday.
Okay.
And I remember seeing you. I remember seeing you and telling myself like I was going to go introduce myself to you. Yeah. And then like service let out and you left and then I didn't see you. So I was like, oh, no big deal. And then you came back for night service and that's when Pastor Sergio brought you up on stage.
Right, because Pastor Sergio was doing the night service.
Yes. So, and I remember I was leading worship and we had our in-ears in and Pastor Sergio said, I want to bring somebody up to pray for him. He's going into a 12-hour surgery, all this like that. Yeah. And as Billy's walking up to the stage, one of our pastors in my in-ears was like, that's Randy's husband coming up to the stage. And I just thought it was so stupid. And I was like laughing at the same time.
Shout out to Pastor Mike. He got my
Uncle
back,
Mike.
Man. Thanks for being a good wingman, Uncle Mike, before I even knew you.
Yeah.
Have my back.
And I remember him saying that and being so confused and laughing at the same time and everybody laughing. And I thought it was a joke because it was always a joke, running joke to just get anybody single with somebody.
Right. In church, for some reason, we always call out the single person.
Yeah. So that was what had happened. And I thought it was a joke. And then... I was and I also thought it was very weird because I had already told myself in my head that I was introducing myself to you and then you came back to service. So I was already like, whoa, what the heck? Yeah. And then after church let out, I went up to you and then I remember meeting and I remember exchanging phone numbers.
Yes, that was big because
right away.
I remember telling my dad about that.
You did?
Oh, yeah. Telling my dad that I got a girl's number already at church.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I already got a girl's number at church.
See, and when I gave you my number, it wasn't intended to be like, oh, here's my number.
Oh, of course not.
It was like, I was like,
I wasn't in your world, so I'm coming out of like any girl that gives me her number. That's like a big deal. Hello. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's great.
I was more like, let me get your number so we can pray for you and like connect with you and
pray
like
for you. Yeah.
Really though.
Yeah.
And then you told me you had surgery the next day and we texted that night.
We texted that night, yeah. Well,
you said you didn't remember anything.
Well, you became like, besides like Josh Donlin and like Jeremy, you became like one of the first female friends like that was like really supportive of me being in church, was always like connecting. I remember after being recovering from the surgery, I had staples going all the way down my stomach. And I remember the first Sunday coming back and you being just like, don't give anybody hugs. You have to recover. You were like so worried about me.
Yeah.
I specifically remember you were like, don't rush back because everyone's going to hug you. And you have that scar and all this stuff.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, you taking care of me.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember us talking about me going out there. Yeah. I was like, do you have anybody that's going to meet you to pray with you? That. And you were like, no, definitely not. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
I don't remember that.
And then it was when you told me that it was just you and your dad that I really was like, somebody has to go out there with him. Like 12-hour surgery and it's just him and his dad.
Yeah.
So then Mariah called off work. She worked in Riverside at the time or Long Beach or something.
She drove you out there,
and
right?
she drove me out there.
So what did she think when?
She was like, we're definitely not
She
I'm
wasn't
not
about it?
yeah, I'm not taking you out of town to go see this random guy at a hospital. And I was like, we have to pray for him, Fred. And I
Well,
just
I had
begged
actually
her.
gone to high school with your sister. We weren't friends,
Uh-huh.
but I know that I remember when she was a sophomore, she was dating a guy that I was friends with. Like, well, I wasn't friends with him, but he was. I was a senior, and he played JV. I played varsity basketball, so we knew each other.
Yeah.
But I just remember I was like, oh yeah, but I never
Yeah.
like even talked to her. So it's just wild that in that moment she's the one driving.
Yeah, I remember
you.
she told me, she was like, well, I do remember him from high school.
Yeah, because I just didn't have a good reputation in high
And
school.
she said he doesn't have any friends that are going to pray for him.
That's for sure. Yeah, my friends are gonna need prayer just as much back then.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
Yeah.
you wanting to come back to church like 2
Right
weeks
away.
after, a week or two
Yeah,
after. And I was like, you're crazy.
Yeah,
I remember that.
that was crazy.
And I remember we were texting each other through your whole recovery. So then your first Sunday coming back, I remember being really excited. I was like embarrassingly excited. I was so
Yeah.
nervous. I remember you telling me you were coming and I was freaking out about what I was going to wear and like what. I remember freaking about I was freaking
Here
out.
we are now.
Yeah, I was freaking out.
Yeah, still freaking out about what you wear, but
It's usually because I want you to think I look good. Thank you.
yeah, it was cool. Okay, so I started serving in the church. You were a part of the worship team. I was doing production. I remember because I was in the back doing batteries, and you would go up on stage, and I'd be like, "Here's your batteries. Here's your mic," and I'd be able to give it to the singers, and I was like, "Ooh." And I did service coordinating for a couple months, and then jumped in youth ministry. We served in youth together, and then we started dating. And I remember talking to your dad about dating, and I've told this story like it was the scariest thing because I had ran into 3 guys that were getting coffee at the same place I was going to meet him. And as I was waiting for him, they walked in. They're like, "Who are you meeting with?" I was like, "George Orontes." They're like, "Ooh," scared the heck out of me. But we ended up dating, and then we broke up.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that we broke up. I think it's always people. I've shared it with a couple people that go through breakups.
Yep.
And I'm always like, hey, it might turn out like me and Randy did. And they're like, what? And I'll say, God had a different.
Doesn't happen for everybody though. So if it's dysfunctional,
No,
run.
Well, yeah. I mean, you better not hope to get a dysfunctional relationship back. But yeah, I think I had some maturing to do for sure because I was like in youth ministry and I was just like not feeling what we were, our relationship. I was just like, I don't know if I want a girlfriend and just didn't really connect. And then remember breaking up with you at a Chipotle.
Yep.
What was that like?
How much do you want me to dig up?
Not too much, but I mean, it's just a part of our story that I think a lot of people don't know.
I think I was really shocked because like just days before we had been like talking about getting married because we were like dating like 6 months or talking to each other for like 6 months.
Yeah, we've been talking 6 months. We had been dating, I think like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
because we broke up like the day after Valentine's Day, and I remember us like I remember us kissing on Valentine's Day, and just afterwards feeling just really bad. I was just like, I'm just not there, and I just was like, I'm like leading her on because I'm not ready for like this, like, and I was feeling like I had jumped into it so quick, and I was now leading in youth, and I was like overthinking how much of that was, and it sucks when people play the God card. I definitely played the God card. You did. In this one. I was like, God definitely wants me just to focus.
I said,
yeah. And I remember we had sat down to order Chipotle, and before you even started eating, I started breaking the news, and she just got up and walked out, left the Chipotle at the table.
That's how you know it was real. Yeah, I was shocked, and then I was like, okay. And I just remember my dad always telling me, if somebody doesn't want to be with you, that's it. That like don't waste your time. You don't beg for attention. You don't beg for love. You don't beg for any of that. So if they don't want to be with you and they've made that clear, you need to act like it's been made clear, even if you don't agree with it. So I just remember you starting to say, I don't know if this is gonna work. And I just like, if you were looking down, like opening your bowl, and when your head was down, I was like, I need to walk away right now.
Yeah, it was quick.
And then you claim you have this thing that happened.
What?
You always tell people that when we broke up, you ran out to the car to me and I flipped you off.
Oh, no, you didn't flip me off, but I did walk up to the car and you just drove away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that, dog. No. What do I say? Okay, cool.
Well,
I understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I was just hoping for a little bit more, I think, but either way, it's behind us now.
It's
So the
behind
next few
us.
months after that was very awkward. Like we were trying to
It was
just be
probably 3 months
friends.
that I really hated you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hate's a strong word, but whatever. Yeah, it was 3 months of genuinely like, how
Well,
do I?
listen to this, dude. I had like not dated anybody in church. Nobody knew any people that I had ever dated in
Oh,
church. That like I had kept
yeah, that was
boyfriends
rough.
away. I had not introduced boys to my parents. Nobody else came home with me, like never. So the fact that I was dating a guy in church and my entire world, which was my church family,
Yeah.
knew him and knew about it, and he was like the thing for me, for that to disappear after Valentine's Day was like,
Yeah,
so
it was a lot.
I did not hate you. I just
No.
resented you a lot.
Yeah, we definitely had to work through some things. So like throughout the year, we're just like it was about 3 4 months. It was definitely awkward, and then we just kind of had a genuine like friendship, and
Mhm.
we were opening up to each other about personal stuff. We were just talking
Then we
again.
became friends.
Yeah,
Like friends.
and we became friends, which I think that was what was missing the first time around.
I agree.
Like I was so like infatuated with I already got a relationship, and it's a godly one. This is great, and then it was like
And I remember the conversation we had when we were broken up and we were like cool again. It was
Yeah.
like you were just more excited about the idea that I was like worship leader and a
Yeah.
leader, and I was like
and
a
you said this. You said you. I get it. You were more into my anointing than me,
Mm.
which is a word right there. Because especially in church, when you are looking for somebody to date, or a lot of times in church, people straight up say like, "I'm looking for my wife. Like I'm here trying to find my wife," and I get it. The Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing." Like I get why you're in the house of God looking for her. But be careful not to fall in love with the call of God that you don't actually get to know who she is.
Mhm.
Be careful just to be like, oh, she's a Christian and lifts her hands during worship. Like, that's great that you like that part, but you better figure out if she's got some other things,
Yeah.
because the anointing covers. And
Yeah.
it's easy to fall in love with what someone does on a platform or their job or how much money they make and be like, wow, I love
This
you
part.
love what God's doing in them. But you got to get to know who they are before it actually becomes like something that'll work.
Yeah. I agree.
So
Yeah.
that was big for us, I think. I'm so glad you brought that up because that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then it was Christmas, and we were doing some invitations for Destiny's Christmas services.
Yes, and we had both gone on dates with other people.
Yeah, we had already gone on dates with other people, and they weren't at all what we expected. I don't think. I think we did it because we were just mad at each other.
And we were trying. Well, I was genuinely trying to like move on because
Like,
I
get
was
over
like
me.
still madly in love with you, and I was
Yep.
trying to just say like, okay, this is fine. It's at this point, it was probably like fall time, and I was like, okay, we're officially not getting back together. This is it. It's
Yeah.
over. I've accepted that we're not going to be back together again. So then I started to date other people, and you didn't like that.
Yeah, I was upset. I was really upset when she said that she was dating other people because I'm like, no, you need to be in the prayer closet right now. I was like,
You know what
I was like the youth pastor already. I got ordained, and I remember I was like, no, I'm your spiritual leader.
You tried that. You
Oh,
said, I'm your youth pastor. I just need to know if you've kissed anybody else.
I know, but I was just messing with her. And it was, please don't miss the point. It was not at all like, I think it was like the first, 2-3 months that I was doing youth. We had like, 6 or 7 kids come in, and I would start telling her stuff, and I'd be like, you need to do this. You need to tell me what you've been doing. And I was just trying to find out if she had an interest. So I remember just like we had a connection beyond just friendship. And I was in a meeting probably like for Thanksgiving time. We were talking about this Christmas outreach we were going to do, and Randy popped her head in, and it was me, Pastor Ben, and Pastor Mike, and we were talking about Christmas outreach, what we got to do. It was like 2013, 14?
2013.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. And Randy pops her head in, and she goes, oh, I didn't know you're having a meeting, and pops her head out. She was wearing a red beanie, and Pastor Ben goes, what are you waiting for? And I was like, don't worry. I'm going to talk to her.
And then the next week we went to the Hillsong concert.
Yeah, Hillsong concert was a big deal because I went with like some boys. I went with like Jack, Gio, Ryan Bike. It's like
Handel.
Shout out those guys if you're watching. And it was awesome. We went to Hillsong, and it was like this real cool experience. I'm a new Christian, so going to a live worship thing like this was epic.
Yeah, this was like one of those first ones.
Yeah, and Randy showed up again in the red beanie.
Red beanie
Jean
again.
jacket. Yep, looking fresh. And all her and her friends, like all the worship leader friends, they were sitting like 6 or 7 rows in front of us. And so we're worshiping during Hillsong, and I would just be thinking like, what if she's going to look back here? You know what I mean? Like, wonder if she'll look back at. Yeah, and so there was times where had these moments where there was like this weird energy.
Yeah.
And so Christmas outreach comes, and I just can't stop looking at her. I get around her. I'm nervous at the Christmas thing, and then finally we talked. I think that night at the church, and I was like, I still have feelings for you. And your response was,
Did you really think you'd end up with anybody else?
"Did you really think you would end up with anybody else?" And that's the part in the movie that will sell the whole script. I'm telling you, Warner Brothers and Pixar, even, we'll take a cartoon, like whatever it is. That's the point where you just go, this girl's a baddie. She just, she literally says, did you really think you were going to be with anybody else? Cue the trigger music right there. It was pretty cool. I love telling that part of the story.
Yeah. I'm so proud of
And
myself. I don't know how I held it together because I was like,
I
was exploding on the inside.
That was pretty cool what you did. Shouts to you. And then we're leaving, and then I remember being like, so do I like kiss you now or something? And you were like, no.
You didn't say no.
Well, you said no, but you were like, no, definitely not. And it just started like
that.
It started the real.
I'm so proud of myself for not. Yeah. Yeah. That was hard. That was really hard because I was so happy.
Yeah, it was amazing. And within 7 months, we were engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Got married, and it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
What are some of since we've been married, what are some of like the big moments along the way, like parts of our marriage that you remember, or you say like, this was a big part where I went, oh, okay, something's happening in us.
Like big eras?
Yeah. Well, like for instance, I'll start like our first apartment.
Yeah.
Like that will always hold a special place in my heart. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath because y'all, I was nervous.
Me too.
About living with my wife.
I was too.
Sharing one bathroom. And, I just, I think your mom had said, she had told me stories. So they had got me ready. They were like, this, Randy's got a lot of stuff. And I said, okay, we got 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, we did. It was a great idea.
I remember when we made the collage wall.
That was a big deal.
And it was my first TV I ever bought with my tax money. Just threw it away.
Oh, R.I.P.
R.I.P. to the LG 50-inch. But that was on the table, and then we did like a collage with all these pictures and stuff. We'll show a picture if we can.
That's so 2015.
Yeah.
Collage wall. Yeah, it was a collage wall. I remember the first apartment. I think another milestone. When we got married, did we have 2 cars?
I think so.
I had that little tiny one, huh?
Yeah, you had the little stick shift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say when I got a car, but no.
Yep.
I think that was a big deal. I feel like even just our honeymoon, like traveling together by ourselves, was like
that was so awesome. Our honeymoon. So first of all, our wedding night, we stayed at the Desert Springs Marriott, which is wild because that's where I used to work. And so I was like, yeah.
Pulled him on his wedding night and all his ex-coworkers.
Parked my car, y'all. Like, look at me now. The next day we flew out to New York City and stayed in Times Square. We stayed in this little tiny Sheraton.
Tiny.
Dude, the Sheraton we stayed in, I don't remember how much it was a night. It's Times Square. So
I think my dad gifted it to us.
Yeah, we didn't pay for it. That's called favor.
Hallelujah. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks. Shouts to George. But it was like, what, 400 square feet, if that?
It was tiny.
Yeah, it's like you open the door, bed.
Restroom.
Yeah, restroom to the right. And that was it. But we were just like, we had waited to have sex till we got married, which is still the right thing to do and still the cool thing to do, y'all.
Amen.
Because it just made the moment that much more significant, and it made
our
starting.
Yeah, our honeymoon did not feel normal.
Yeah,
not in a bad way, in like the best way possible. It was like, it was so exciting.
It was rewarding.
Yep.
That we were gonna get to wake up to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in that place where you've already, had sex with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or you already shared some of those experiences, like going away together. If you ever feel like marriage is right for you, there's a way still to like give yourself a gap so you can rededicate and do it.
Mm-hmm. So it feels fresh.
Yeah, like we just married a couple. It's their 3rd time each getting married, and we counseled them to, hey, try to take a break from some of these normal things so that when you get married, it feels rewarding again.
Yeah, try to do something that you've never done because maybe you'll get something different finally.
Absolutely, yeah. So that whole trip was life changing. Like I was like, man, I'm a husband.
I loved it. It was the best. It was the best.
And then I remember we went to the park across the street from my dad's old work in New York City.
That was so cool.
I used to live in New York City as a kid for like 4 or 5 years, kindergarten age and stuff. And so I'm taking Randy around, showing her different places. We took the train and went and saw my old house.
Your hometown.
Yeah, we did different things.
It
It was
was
so
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and then we came back and it was like awesome. Like
Yeah.
our everyone says your first year of marriage is gonna be horrible, and for us it was
I feel like
great.
our second year was harder than our
The
first year.
second one was harder than the first one for
Yeah.
sure. Other milestones. We moved to LA. That was a big moment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was our fourth place
Mhm.
because we lived in on Washington in like La Quinta Palm Desert border,
Mhm.
Bermuda Dunes area,
Then
and
we
then
lived.
Cat City,
Yep.
a little townhouse, and
Loved Cat
then
City. Then I didn't love Cat City.
Rancho Mirage.
Then Rancho Mirage. Loved Rancho Mirage, but then it got mold.
Yeah, it got mold, and then from there, that was a milestone moment for me. It
That
was
was crazy.
like I remember we were sitting in the hot tub at your mom's place, the apartment she was in.
Mhm.
It was kind of like a little
It was
townhome.
a townhouse,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was like a little townhouse. And we were just talking about how in our life we have always made decisions thinking about others. We've thought about our family, we've thought about people, we've thought about our church. And I was gonna approach my pastor and tell him like, I'm willing to leave the church to go to LA and I won't be a pastor. Like I'll just attend the campus we have out there. Like we were getting ready to make some big jumps.
Yeah. A lot of our decisions had been framed around a lot of the ministry we were involved in before.
Right.
And I think this was a time where we were pivoting and it was possible that I was going to come on staff and it was
Yep.
possible that you were going to do something next also. And there was
Yep.
this teetering and nothing really got solidified. And we had always waited on the cusp of somebody else making a decision. And I think
Wow.
for the first time we were like, no, what is God calling Billy and Randy to? Isolated. We didn't have a child at the time. We had nothing to tie us to anything except for each other.
Yeah.
So what was going to be the next jump? Because we had been married, I think,
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. Well, no longer
No,
than
I was going
that.
to say it was like 5.
Yeah, it'd probably been more about 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
And we were like, okay, where are we going? Because we had no lease we were stuck to because of
Right.
the mold. We had
Right.
we were living with my mom's boyfriend at the time, which is her husband now, but we were living with him because we had nowhere else to fit or go because Mai was living at home in that townhouse with my mom's. It was just like all the pieces were kind of just floating and we were attached to nothing. And yeah, I remember being at the hot tub and having that conversation and asking you like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Where do I want to go? Are we on the same page on what we want to do? And I remember a job opportunity coming up in LA and yeah, that's when you were like, we're doing this then. And
Yeah.
you had already intended to go, like you said, talk to pastor and say, we're moving to LA. And if it works for you to allow me to work from there and like I can be a part of the LA campus, but if not, like we're ready to just transition.
And just to approach those kind of decisions, it's more about getting to that place than it is the outcome of those actual decisions.
Mhm.
Because getting out there was huge for us. You know, over the next 2 years, we'd build that local campus. We were there during the pandemic,
Yeah,
which
but wait,
strengthened us.
before that even happens, you were gonna go do that, and the next day you went in, and I remember pastor telling you,
Yeah.
"We're ready to send you guys to LA,"
Oh
before
yeah.
you even had the conversation.
Before I could even approach him about it, he said, "Well, this is something we want you to do anyways." Like it was something,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
huge.
which was crazy because we didn't even like it was like God
It
was kind of
wasn't planned
working.
that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God was working
Yeah.
in them to already kind of align what was
And
happening.
big decisions, they need a few confirmations. Like if you're going to make a decision that's going to affect your family, your financial balance in life, your outlook on things, possibly might be something you start from the ground up. Like you better have a couple confirmations before you just jump into it.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, we have a pretty vivid prayer life in a sense that all our decisions kind of fled through that. But the bigger ones, especially, need some counsel.
Mhm.
You know, the Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there's safety.
Mhm.
So I'd rather check with a few people before I just decide to do something that could affect my entire future.
Yeah, yeah,
You
I
know,
agree.
so
I think we've always lived by that. Like the wise man has many counselors. All of that
yeah,
has always been consistent in our life.
yeah, to have those things has
Mhm.
been so crucial.
Yeah. So then we
Um,
moved to LA. We were a part of South Bay campus,
yep,
led over there, um, lived in West Hollywood for the first year, and then lived in
that was cool.
Torrance for the
Living
second
in
year.
West Hollywood is cool because we were living in an apartment we definitely could not afford.
At the
And
time,
well, at the time we could, but it was like
brother.
it was not wise to probably spend that much on an apartment. But we were just like, we know we're only going to be here for a year.
Yeah, I think
We had predetermined that
yes.
we were going to enjoy the year and we were going to invest in it, and we had the best time. I mean, we rode those electric scooters.
I
We,
remember that so clearly,
yeah,
dude, being like, look, we were coming up on like when we were going to start having
Right.
kids. So we already had decided when that time was, and we were like, look, we're going to have kids soon. We're not moving back into West Hollywood ever again.
No, let's do this.
I will never move back to West Hollywood. This is it. And so we went all out. Dude, we lived across the street from the Grove. We would go out and eat every other night, restaurants. And
we were getting coffee at all the, $4 latte places.
$8 lattes.
Well, I mean, back then it was, $4.50. Now they were like $8. It's just wild.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was our reality. But again, it's so cool just to have a relationship where we talk about those things, because it's like we got the most out of that season agreeing on what that season was for.
Yep.
And if you're not in agreement with your partner on the seasons in life, you'll both be trying to do different things.
Well, you're just striving for two different outcomes.
Right.
And you're a team, so you're just, this is never going to
work like that. Yeah.
It's tug of war, man.
Yep. That's cool. Okay, well, we've been at it now for 37 minutes. With some editing, probably less, but we know why you're here. You want the 8 things we've learned in 8 years of marriage. And so we want to go through these one by one and just share some things that maybe might help you in your relationships, whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're married now. These are things that just over, since 2015, since January 1, 2015, we've really learned these 8 things. And so the first one is the foundational practices of your life matter in the long haul.
That's a big one to start off
Well,
with.
listen, for me,
say that again though.
The foundational practices of your life matter in the long haul. Like in year 1, it was so cool that we both had like a devotional life, and we both prayed, and we both had counselors in our life we could talk to. There's been seasons where those foundations are out of whack.
Where those things where we're not praying every day, we're not reading our Bible every day, we're not talking to like pastors or leaders. Yeah. Those foundational things weren't always happening.
Yeah, and when they're not, it shows in the health of the relationship. And this isn't just spiritual stuff, like your eating habits. Like there's times where we've been
sleeping patterns,
solid with how we eat, and it's shown. We feel better. We have more energy. We have more time for each other. Like I think we bonded through like prepping and like working out together. Not every couple can work out together, so it's not advice for everyone, like a silver bullet or anything, but it is something that we did. And those little practices, they matter not just for the moment, but
yes,
in the long haul.
Yes. And I think we have learned that some of the foundational practices that I have in my life, you maybe don't necessarily need, but I need them, and then vice versa. So we have made it a decision that whatever either of us needs is the foundational things our life needs. Right.
It's not just, absolutely.
So you need prayer and devotional time in the morning. I like to sit down at the end of the night quietly. So what do I do in the morning when you don't want to wake up? It's like, hey, you have to get up, baby. Right. You got to get up.
Encourage me in the foundational practices that affect our life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's like there's practices that aren't healthy. So this point works in so many different ways because naturally we become what we do on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So like what you watch, what you feed, like you are what you eat is a real statement in terms of your mental health, your spirit life. Like we've talked about the times where we're engaging in podcast content that's more like funny or just kind of, casual stuff. And we've been like, okay, it's cool. It's great to be entertained. But there's a difference when you start now inputting like we've been listening to Jensen Franklin's podcast lately. Like you input that once a day instead of like sarcastic comedy all the time. It affects like your output.
Yeah. Yeah. It's foundational stuff. And sometimes it's your marriage. It may not show in your marriage immediately that y'all are falling apart and can't stand being around each other. But do you bicker more often? Do you have less patience? Are you quicker to speak? Are you accusatory? Those things are not just things happening because your partner's doing something wrong. Yeah. Those are things that are happening because you are triggered and your life is out of sync for what it has what it needs.
Yeah.
So I think that it will show in different ways. It doesn't mean you have to be falling apart because these foundational things, it's like simple. Yeah. Can your wife tell you she's frustrated with you without you blowing up?
Right.
That's probably because you're missing something in your daily life that gives you less patience.
Right. And your partner's seeing angles that you're not seeing. You see things about me that maybe I don't see because I am me and you experience me. So it's more so there just has to be communication about when those things are off.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, number 2.
It's not about being right. It's about being unified.
Mm.
So hard.
Wow. It's not about being right. It's about being unified. And so this is more so like when we're talking about fighting. Because again, we've been married 8 years, but we still get into a little bickering. We get
Yes, we
into
do.
moments where easy now. We get into we get into moments where we disagree on things. We get into moments where we're annoyed with each other.
Mhm.
Because yeah, we're pastors, we have a platform, but we're people, we're normal. And
Mhm.
so for us, we've really had to make clear, like when we're fighting about something, the point is not to eventually end the fight and go, okay, I was right, you were wrong, say it.
Yeah.
It's to walk away from a disagreement and say, okay, but are we unified again
Yeah.
on the things that matter?
And this is how I think you do it.
Yeah.
This is, yeah, because that's a great idea. Like, it's not about being right, it's about being unified. At the end of the conversation, we normally tend to end with, okay,
Mm.
so what do you need me to what now?
Right.
What do you need me to do?
What can I do
What
now
can I do now?
to reassure you of our unity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if we argued about the gas tank not being full anymore,
Yeah.
something silly like that. At the end of it, it's like, okay, what do I need to do now? If I got upset with you, I still even ask, what do I need to do now?
Right.
And you tell me, you need to remind me that the
say
gas
this
is
next
empty.
time,
This is
or-
what you need to
yeah,
do.
or change how you say it.
So
because-
instead of walking away with all of the things that your spouse owned up to, walk away with 3 things that you need to do now.
yeah, like some actual takeaways
For you,
Handles.
not for your significant other to handle now, not a list of things that they committed to, but now what you as an individual are responsible for.
Good.
And I think too often we walk away and we're like, well, I told him he needs to do this now, and he needs to do this now, and he needs to do that now. No, I need to do this now.
Mm.
I need to do that now. And I think you stay unified when you're a lot more focused on what you need to make an adjustment of.
Right. And even so in marriage, like there has to be room for your spouse to take risks and for you as a couple to take risks and to support each other. And I think sometimes like there's things that Randy will say, I really want to try this. And in my head, I'm going, this is going to work. But if we do try it and she fails, I can't sit there and go, see, I was right. It has to be like, man, we're unified in the sense that I want you to try things. I want to take
Mhm.
risks. It's not the case for everything, but there are moments where it's like you need to support each other and go for it. Try it. I support you. Let's
Mhm.
see.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to say, yeah, right. You're not trying that again. Like,
Yeah.
no, we're unified. We believe that, our marriage can be more of an adventure than it is can be like, we're just conserving everything and trying to keep.
So good.
So that's been
So
huge
true.
for us. It's not about being right, being unified. Okay. Third one is sex is awesome, but it's not everything. Sex is awesome, but it's not everything.
Yes.
As I mentioned, we waited to have sex till we got married, and I was thinking about it leading up to our wedding night, because I hadn't had sex in a covenant context like this.
And you haven't had sex in a long time.
Well, thanks for telling everybody. But anyways, well,
That's good.
It's a good thing. Yeah,
It's a
of
good
course.
thing.
Well, no, it was a whole different world in the sense that now I'm becoming one with my wife. Like it was a whole different level. And I think a lot of Christians, especially young Christians, think that getting married just is an on ramp to sex all the time.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. People are running to the
Oh.
altars,
Oh, yeah.
rushing the process, not even getting counseled on
Mhm.
marriage just because they want to have sex.
Yeah.
And sex is awesome, but it's not everything in a marriage.
Yeah. Sex is awesome. But then when sex is over, the person is still there.
Bruh. I mean, it's great, y'all. I don't care how much of God you have in your life. Sex is a small part of your experience with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I always preach this illustration about life is so small in comparison to eternity.
Mhm.
Sometimes we get caught up in the 75, 85 years we have. That's nothing compared to where you're going to spend eternity.
Mhm.
And it's the same in marriage. Sex is a very small part of what the goal of marriage is.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And I think for us, like it's a compound unit. Two are becoming one.
Mhm.
And that's in how we worship God and how we live our life. Sex is a reward when it's in covenant. It's a responsibility that we have to express our love to each other that way. But I can't sit here and tell you that sex is the only reason you should get married, because that's going to fade. It's
Yeah.
not going to be all the time.
Yep. I agree.
I wonder if Abraham and Sarah were worried, when he was like, you're going to have a baby. And they're like, how? We don't even do it anymore. Like sex is a very small part of your long-term marriage. And And, when I counsel couples and they're already having sex and they're kind of like, well, we're going to get married, but we're already doing it. I'll tell them, like, okay, stop having sex so it becomes sacred again
Mhm.
and you hold it in high regard.
Mhm.
There's times where, we've tried, I think, to keep sex as like something we use. And I've been in seasons where it's like, oh, well, sex, we're not having sex then. We try to like use it against each other. And that's just so dysfunctional.
You feel like we've had those times?
I think so. I think early on it was like we're young and we're just thinking like, okay, I could just have sex whenever I want. I'm just gonna show up and just give me sex. And again, there's this reality in covenant love where some people think like, okay, it's cool now, no guilt, so I can just expect it. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
It has to be meaningful. It has to be appropriate for the time
Yeah,
setting
I think too, the first like 1 to 3 years, you're probably like, this is awesome all the time.
all the time.
Then it turns into a phase where you are now like uh fostering that intimacy,
Yeah.
and you're like,
It's more of like stewarding it,
yeah,
like making sure it's to show how much we care about each other
mhm,
still.
yeah,
Because normally when that stops, other things in the marriage slowly dwindle.
yeah,
And so for us, it's been a big way to keep the fire going.
yeah,
Like at times where we're kind of like, dude, I'll say it like this: it's the greatest reset button. That
amen.
if there has been seasons of struggle or there's been a bad week or we've been bickering a lot, sometimes just having sex literally
Or there's literally
resets.
just so much stress going on in our life.
Absolutely. It resets that idea of like, okay, we're in this together, like, and it's sacred when it's before the eyes of God. Like when it's just to get off and I got stressed, so I'm gonna go sleep with someone. The long term won't work for you, my friend. Overnight, maybe one night thing, maybe you feel good that night. But when it's with your partner
Mhm.
and you start to hold sex in a high value and a high standard, it really does reset your soul.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's too deep, but
No, I
I
agree.
think I think people need to hear about it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, let's keep going. Number 4, be willing to fix yourself before telling your partner something is broken in them. Be be willing to fix yourself before telling your partner something is broken in them. This has got to be blueprint textbook for
Yeah, it's
some
basic
couples.
stuff, guys.
Yeah, I mean, for some couples though, it's like they are professional investigators into their spouse. And I'm not called to investigate my wife. I'm called to lead her, love her, serve her, be with her. And sometimes if we're looking for something more than we're enjoying what we're there with, we'll devalue what we're there with.
Yeah, I think that has happened
Yeah.
in us for sure.
Oh yeah, where we're suspicious.
We're investigators.
Yeah, like
We're
is,
deep
is,
thinkers.
is she really interested right now? Does she really want to go out? Like she says she wants to go out, but is she really showing that she wants to go out? I wonder what she's really thinking. I wonder if I can get her to change her mind. And we start to get into this he said, she said in our heads.
Yeah.
When she's just like, I'm just happy to be out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we create these narratives in our mind. And I think it just a lot of that roots from like this place of wanting to please your significant other, but at what expense? Do you know what I mean? Like wanting them to be so happy and content and okay and satisfied,
Yeah.
instead of saying that's their responsibility to communicate to me if those things in their life are not met. And instead of trying to get ahead of all these problems and fix issues that aren't even there, it's like, let's just put some responsibility on our significant other to communicate. And when they
Yeah.
do, take it seriously.
Yeah, you're a big boy. You can say what you're feeling to your
Yeah.
wife. You can say, I mean, you tell your friends when you're pissed off at them and you articulate it fine to them. You might not use the best words, but you sure do let your boys know when something's off.
Yeah.
I think it's just as simple as, hey, what happened yesterday made me feel inadequate. Or when you say that, it challenges my manhood. Like rather than feeling it and venting it to everyone else,
Go tell your wife. My
like,
gosh.
this makes me feel small. Or this makes
and then be ready to hear what they have to say,
yeah, that's good.
and be willing to hear what they
Yes.
have to say. I think one of the things that is so important is your significant other should not have to beg you
Mm.
to hear something that is affecting them in a negative way. If something is affecting me negatively, I should not have to beg my husband
Yeah.
to hear me out. So husbands, wives, vice versa, whoever it is, if your significant other has ever told you, I'm being negatively affected mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually by this action, I understand reminding, talking through why that is, but they shouldn't have to beg you to hear the truth. And I think in a lot of relationships, I've seen it more where women go to tell their significant other, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that, and it includes them.
Yeah.
And immediately the husband either goes to, I don't want to talk about this. I'm tired of hearing this. Or fine, I'm a terrible husband.
Yeah, or it's like self-loathing and deprecation. It's like, oh, I'm the worst then. Fine, I'm never enough for you.
Yeah.
And again, we take the spotlight off the real issue and we just put it right back on ourselves.
Victimization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's been huge for us.
But I think that is all tied hand in hand with being able to work on yourself first.
Yeah.
Is a good starting point is asking yourself, can I hear anything negative? Can I hear any sort of constructive criticism from my spouse?
That's good.
Can I do that? Or do I lash out and freak out every time? Am I able to be a recipient of feedback in my marriage? Am I able to sit and actually chew on what my significant other, the only person that I can't hide from in life, am I able to get a real evaluation from them? Or do I fall apart, close my doors, set up a camp, and disassociate from what's really going on in the situation? Or am I able to listen? Because your significant other is the only person that fully loves you and chooses to love you. Your mom loves you because she's your mom. Your siblings love you because they're your siblings. Your family loves you because they're your family. Your wife or your husband is an individual that chose to love you with no obligation, but the sole fact that they love you. So when it comes down to talking through issues and dealing with what's wrong within ourselves, we really have to get to a point as a generation, if we're going to keep marriage alive, keep marriage a real thing, not just a concept that used to exist before, we have to be willing to hear what's wrong about ourselves sometimes from our significant other and listen well and not shut down and emotionally shrink and disappear on our significant other. That's why I think marriages have gone out the door, because we don't know how to hear what's wrong about ourselves.
Yeah. Are we staying moldable? You know, does your spouse, like if you're getting married, your spouse is not getting the finished product of you. They are getting you in that season, picking you up. Now, listen, you need to be ready, but like they're getting the finished single version of you. That's what your spouse is getting. When you get married, your spouse isn't getting the finished product of who you are. They're getting the finished product of the single version of you. This is who you've become up to that moment. And so in a marriage, we are committed to the long haul transformation of each other. And that's one of our points. We'll get to it in a second. So let's keep moving on. We're going to end in a second. I want to speed up a little bit.
Okay.
Because I know the baby's going to wake up.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So we're on number 5 then. 5th thing that we've learned in 8 years of being married.
Create a budget and clarify who does what when it comes to finances.
Can we talk about money in marriage for a second?
Yeah.
I meet a lot of couples that don't, once they get married, they don't combine the finances. You know this.
Yeah, I know. And I know it works for some people. It just would never work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound too dogmatic here. It don't work for us, homie. Like, I think that is a big part of becoming one, is we trust each other that level. Now, when there's habits, we've both had bad spending habits at times, and that's why we've established a budget. That's why we talk about our finances. That's why we've had years where you're doing it, and then at the end of the year, you'll be like, okay, your ticket this year. Like, we carry the load together, but it wouldn't work for us for me to be like, hey, I got an extra bank account over here that's got my own money.
Yeah, no. Well, I think too,
that my and yours thing is just, I think it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, it just is like another area that are you willing to confront some of the issues we have as individuals. You have a spending issue. I have a spending issue. You're too frugal. You're not frugal. Like, you're too stiff with finances. We don't enjoy our life. You enjoy our life too much. That is part of the wrong thing. That's part of working out the things in our life to become one for reals.
Yeah, that is the sacrifice of marriage.
Yes.
For reals.
For reals. WTH.
A budget's been big for us. So we have a personal budget that shows us how much money comes in every month, what day of the week bills get paid. And then we touch base with each other. Like, if the bank account, something fluctuates in it, we talk about it. Hey, did you see that charge? Hey, did you notice this? Because we're always planning towards where we're going financially now. So it's like, we want to communicate about it.
Yeah.
And most couples will fight about money because they're probably not talking about it in the right way. We fight about money because there's not enough of it, or we fight about money because we're spending it the wrong way. We should be fighting about money because we want to save it differently and we want to steward it differently. It should be like, this matters versus just, well, we're not stewarding it right. Like, I want to get to a place where our arguments are more about what to do with what God's given us versus how, we're going back and forth about how much we make or we don't make enough, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in a marriage, if you don't talk about money, eventually you'll fight about money.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah. You good?
Yeah, I agree.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You had it up.
Okay. Number 6.
Never stop pulling gold out of each other.
Never stop pulling gold out of each other. What do you think that means?
I mean, I think after a few years, you can just get so used to the person that you're with.
Yeah.
That you just stop reminding them how creative they are, how inspiring they are, how unique they are, how strong they are, how encouraging they are, how impactful their life, like all those things like that, where you were like, oh, well, they already know that. And I heard somebody say it. I don't know who it was, maybe Craig Rochelle. He said, if you are ever thinking anything positive about your significant other,
you should say it.
Say it.
Yes, say it.
Say it.
Any positive thought should be said.
Why would you withhold encouragement from your spouse? If it is existing in your mind and it's a positive thought, just let it out. Your hair looks great right now.
Thank you.
I love your crew neck.
Thank you. I love your earring ensemble.
Thank you.
That's what I'm calling it today.
Thank you. They're from Lidl.
Yeah, just compliment each other. When was the last time you complimented your wife? Like whether you've been married a year or 10 years, like having a daily affirmation for each other does make a big difference.
Yeah.
And I do think though, the idea of pulling gold out is almost like to get gold out of a mine, you got to dig a little bit. And so sometimes there has to be a challenge in your spouse. Like I love to remind you of like the preaching gift that's on your life and like the pastoral leadership you carry so that when those opportunities come up, it's not the first time you're hearing that. I got to pull the gifts out of you and the dreams out of you. I want to write a 3rd book this year. And so Randy's like going to start pulling out of me like, hey, you can do this. When's your next writing time? And if we're just comfortable with each other and the rest of the marriage is just cruising, it's going to be boring.
Yeah. Well, I think exactly what you said. You strike gold, but if you want to keep having more gold, you got to go mine for it.
Yes.
And like, yeah, that's really good. It's really good. And it is true. It's like, if I want to see my husband thriving, if I want to see our family thriving, then each of us as individuals have to thrive, right? Yeah. So I'm responsible for making sure you know how important, valuable, unique, all this stuff. I think
that's huge. So never stop pulling gold out of each other. The 7th thing we've learned is your needs are my needs. This was your thought.
Yeah.
Your needs are my needs. So what does that mean?
I think sometimes we just kind of like make this like list. These are the things Billy needs. These are the things Randy needs. These are the things Atlas needs. No, these are the things that our family needs. Because sometimes if I categorize them too much, and maybe some of you out there are experiencing this, my brain is like lists and tabs and things in a way to try and stay on top of my responsibilities or duties or things. And so if I separate those two things, then when I'm working on Billy's needs, if I, for some reason, don't have the energy, don't have the emotional capacity, don't have the mental capacity, whatever, I will easily make your needs a chore.
Yeah.
Instead of a delight to be a part of meeting.
That's good.
Do you know what I mean?
That's good.
Like, so if in my head over the 8 years, if Billy needs something, Randy needs something.
Yeah.
Like
if Billy's stressed about something, Randy's stressed about something.
I'm thinking about it too. If you're thinking about it, I'm thinking about it. If it burdens you, it burdens me. If it worries you, it makes me alert that this thing worries you. So I'm constantly trying to mesh these things as one, because if you separate them, they just become chores to do or something that Billy wants.
Right.
No, this is something our household and our family needs.
Absolutely. And even for all the Christians that are listening to this, like there's biblical precedents, Galatians chapter 6 says that we're supposed to bear one another's burdens in love. So already we should be bearing each other's burdens that are just our brothers and sisters. How much more should we be caring for our spouse? And then there's Ephesians 5, husbands, lay down your lives for your wives, basically. Be willing to carry the burden of her pregnancy. I can't tell you how many times I see a woman be pregnant and it's like the dad, he just works, and you need to work, but like you also need to be present. And be available to help and be willing to like do something versus she's got it.
Yeah. And
it's because she's carrying it doesn't mean she's carrying it.
Yeah. She shouldn't have to carry it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think needs are like examples. Like, again, we've talked about this too. Yep. Billy's introvert. I'm a little bit more extrovert. So we have this way of knowing, I know in the back of my mind, he needs isolated, quiet time.
Yeah, family time, lonely time.
Just us, just our
Yes.
family, just you by yourself. I need time out around people with whatever. So, yeah, I have needs of going and seeing other people, and you have needs of coming home and resting and recharging and all that stuff like that. So, throughout our week, I'm always gauging, okay, have we had time where Billy gets to sit down for a second and regroup? And I don't even have to think about, am I getting time with other people, because he's already
Right.
aware of that and
Right.
pushing in those areas. And so I think that's very clear. Needs based downtown, like our house needs to be cleaned. And guess what? It stresses me out when our house isn't clean. So Billy already knows, in the moments and pockets and windows of time, he does things that he can around the house because he knows that that's attached to peace in my life.
And that's something she needs, which is something I need, which is how we keep.
We need, I need, you need, you need, we need, I need, we need.
Yep. Yep. So that's the first 7. This is the last one. Marriage gets us ready for eternity.
Yep.
And I think this has been a personal journey for us over the last couple of years. Like we first talked about that idea about not being married in heaven, and just, the theological wrestling with that, and like what that actually means and how is that and all that. So, there's that. I mean, I've preached this before, like just trying to show the significance of marriage, and been like, the Bible says, Jesus said that in marriage, we're not going to be married.
In marriage, we're not going to be married.
In heaven, we won't be married.
Yeah.
And I've heard, men say amen at that part. So it's not always the best news for people. But I think it's really reminded us that, like, before Randy is my wife, she is God's daughter. And one day I've got to answer for how did I have a marriage with his daughter? And sometimes I think, as Christians, we make this about like, oh yeah, we just need to make sure that we're keeping each other in church and challenge and reading the Bible and stuff like that. And it's also a side of like, no, she's going to meet her maker one day and I'm going to meet mine, and how we treated each other and what we did for each other is going to help develop us. She's not fully responsible. She's not responsible at all for my spiritual well-being. And like, I've got to connect with God and I've got to take responsibility for that. But you best believe in the back of my mind, I'm making decisions knowing that she's going to answer to God one day.
Yeah.
And that our marriage is not forever, but our love for God will be. And that should be what's first and foremost in our relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
I know people say it's intense, but it's like, dude, if we're going to confess this stuff as Christians, we want it in our marriage too.
Well, the entirety of scripture is what we live by.
Yeah. The whole counsel.
Yeah. The whole thing. And so I think we can't leave the parts out that are a little bit deeper or harder or more challenging. And like you said, we're only married this little sliver of what, 50, 60 years, 70 years if we're lucky.
Yeah, we'll make it.
All these years on earth, and then we get to heaven, and now I have to make sure my relationship has been fostered enough with Jesus that when I get there, I don't meet a stranger. And you're pushing me to that, and I'm pushing you to that. When I think we've said it before too, like even as pastors, like we know in the back of our mind, when we stand before our maker, scripture says that teachers will be judged more harshly. If I know my husband is going to be judged more harshly, you best believe I am pushing him to a standard of holiness every day.
Yep. And study and commitment to, the scriptures, like getting them right, not just preaching them to sound good,
like, and loving people.
What does this mean?
And laying our life down and reminding each other what this is all about. Like those foundational things not only prepare you when you go to see face to face with Jesus, but it makes us, or produces in us a deeper love for Jesus, and we're living out a better, like to the capacity that we were actually designed.
Yeah, we are more in alignment with our original design.
There you go. Sorry.
When we are married.
Yes.
And not that marriage is for everyone, because there's always those cats in the comments that are like, well, what about single people? Great. Got a gift of singleness. Bless you. But there's something great about marriage that, reveals God's love for us. And that's just, it's a beautiful thing,
Yes.
It's crazy. But
it is crazy. It has been crazy 8 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I say I've been married 5 years.
Yeah.
And now here we are 8 on our way to 9. And I think that we have loved well. We've had so much fun over 8 years.
Yeah.
The amount of trips and places we've gone. And
we've really gone for it.
But like you say, you said this earlier, who you marry is, you don't marry the finished product. And I'm just glad that we have found each other, and I found somebody that is okay with working on the product until we get to Jesus.
Come on. So good. Yep. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. And I get to kiss you whenever I want.
All right, fam. Thanks for watching. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the feedback. Please, please, please let us know what you think. And if there's any topics you want us to hit, we've got a few lined up that are going to be fun. But thanks for watching with the Heathers. We'll see you next time.
Oh. Meet me at the altar in your white dress. We ain't getting no younger. We might as well do